I'm Meenakshi and I'll be moderating the session today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box and I'll bring them up at the end of the session. Now, whenever we see school toppers nowadays, the first thing that we say or tell them that he or she will have a really bright career. But what about the children who did not perform well? What about the children who fail a subject or two? What do you actually tell them? Today's speaker is an exemplary personality who went up to be a CEO despite all the failures that he saw, just because he refused to give up. Mr. Ashok Ramachandran started his career at Schindler at Australia in the quality department, post which he progressed to the role of branch manager before being appointed as managing director of Schindler Vietnam in 2012. After a successful stint there, where he achieved a complete turnaround of the business at Vietnam, he was assigned the role of managing director of Schindler Malaysia in 2016. He is a highly passionate, inspired, and results-oriented general management professional with diverse experience, ranging from leading businesses in mature markets to fast-growing emerging markets as well. Mr. Ramachandran became India's youngest country head of Schindler Group and the recipient of the prestigious Economic Times 40 Under 40 honor in 2019 as well. However much I speak on this, words will never be enough to cover all of his accomplishments. So just let me invite him here. Everybody, please join me in welcoming our guest for today, Mr. Ashok Ramachandran. The topic for today is Chasing Obscene Success Dash. Mr. Ramachandran, welcome, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you all participants joining today's program. It's really a pleasure and honor to be speaking to all of you who are, I'm sure, already multi-talented and looking at a great future as well. So what I thought was, rather than boring all of you with some theoretical subjects, I thought the best way is to share my own story with the learnings that I picked up during my journey. And that's a very small attempt to inspire each one of you for you to chase what I call as obscene success in your personal and professional careers. So I will use a PowerPoint. So if you can give me access for sharing screen. I think I do have access. I guess you can see my slides. Okay, thank you very much. Now, in case you're wondering where do I work and what do I do and what does my company do, I thought I will just start with a very small introduction on that. So I work for Schindler. It's an elevator company. It's a Swiss company. We've been existing for over 140 years. Started in 1874 in Switzerland and moved on over to various countries over this time. In year 1980, we were the first to set up a joint venture in China, the first foreign company, multinational company. And we entered India in the year 1998, opened our factories in 2014. And we're the first company to have elevator factory, escalator factory, all inbuilt in India. Not only that, but along with the changing times of digitization, we also went on to elevate the future by embracing new technologies. So what you see on the screen is, on the top part of the screen, what you see is a predictive maintenance technology that we have introduced, where you can predict the elevator breakdown before the elevator breaks down. And it gives signal to the technician who will fix the elevator before the breakdown actually happens. So currently, when an elevator breaks down, you call the elevator company, somebody comes and fixes it. In the future, before the breakdown happens, somebody will fix it. So you won't even know there was a breakdown. On the bottom of the screen, what you see is how on the elevator doors and inside the elevators, we can convert them into digital advertising space, which can be monetized, and that will help people to use elevator as a profit center and not just as a cost center. On the rightmost bottom, you see a robot. That's our robot helping with elevator installation. That's also innovation from Schindler. So I'm just showcasing a little bit of innovation that we have done, and to show that even a very traditional engineering company has to move on with times and catch up with machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I have to do my bit about selling the company, as a CEO. That's all about the company. Now we will move into my journey. So my journey of chasing obscene success started in 2006 in Australia. And the colors marked in red are the countries that I worked. And just to give you all a perspective, I was born and raised in Chennai in a very typical lower middle class family, like most people. A very humbling background. Went to a reasonably good school, and I was a very avid musician. I used to be a famous singer in school, and that's what I thought would be my career. And the first time I failed was in my 11th standard. I failed a couple of subjects, and I really got a shock of my life, because I used to be a reasonably good student till 10th. I was above average. I didn't realize that sciences was not my cup of tea, but I still went on to pursue engineering, which was another, I would say, a disaster of why I did that as well. 4 years of engineering, multiple subjects failed. Thankfully managed to pass in the 4 years, and then struggled to find a job after engineering. I worked in multiple call centers, did odd sales jobs, door-to-door sales, and finally found my way to do my master's degree in Australia. I had a lot of friends studying there, and they mentioned about it. So I took a education loan, mortgaging my house. The only house that my parents had, they had to mortgage the house, took a housing loan, education loan on the house, went to Australia to study, and had a very interesting 2 years of education in Australia. I did a master's in industrial engineering. I had done a bachelor in instrumentation control engineering. So my industrial engineering was a very enjoyable time, because I realized that it was not core technical, it was a mix of technical and management, and I really enjoyed my education. But what was funny was, when I graduated, out of the 30 students in my class, I was the only one without an honors degree. Everybody else in my class had got honors, but I couldn't. And I still remember that day thinking that, why am I just always not able to make it when everybody else is able to make it? It gave me a lot of anxiety and a feeling of failure always. And then I was doing my internship as the last semester of my engineering in a local furniture manufacturing company in Australia. I got my first break there as a project engineer on the site. I worked there for 6-7 months, and right after that I joined Schindler in Australia as a graduate trainee. That was my first role, and that's where my journey of obscene success started. So I want to share with you all 4 examples from 4 different countries and what was my learning from them. So I joined Schindler in Australia in 2006. 2008, I became the general manager for a branch. That was the biggest jump of my life, because I joined as a graduate trainee in 2006, and within 2 years, I went from an entry level to a general manager. It's a long story of how that happened as well. I wouldn't be able to cover all of that today, because my plan is to spend half an hour talking to all of you, and then the remaining half an hour you can ask me questions. But when I became the general manager, I was 28 years old. I was branch manager for a $100 million company. People reporting to me were at least 45 or 50 years white Australians. And I was this young, brown-skinned Indian guy, haven't managed a business before, just has a double degree, and had 2 years of work experience in Schindler. So my goal was, how do I make the organization proud of giving me this opportunity? How do I make them feel so happy that this guy is not just a young master degree guy, but he's a great leader. One of the first things I did was I prepared a 100-day plan. The 100-day plan was to give me an idea, how do I run my business for my own benefit. I was very scared that I would fail. I was worried that I may not be able to deliver as per expectation. So I made a 100-day plan. And the first thing I wrote in the 100-day plan was, at the end of 100 days and the end of my tenure, let's say I worked as a general manager for 3 years, what would be the announcement about my move from that role to the next role? I thought about the end and I said, what would people say about me 3 years later? And I said, I want to start working on that now. So I wrote that people should call me as an inspiring leader. People should say I achieved the financial results. People should say I created a great culture, a performance-oriented culture. This is the words I wrote on the first day of my management role, thinking about my end of tenure in that same role. And that is what I wanted to achieve, and I started driving and believing and practicing those kind of things. But the most important thing for me was, I decided that I'm not going to stand in front of my team and ever say that I'm the boss and you're going to listen to me. And I said to them that you're my colleague first and then I'm the boss. But I will never be the boss because we all are in this together. You have a role, I have a role. They call me the branch manager, they call you a salesperson. Doesn't mean I'm bigger than you or you're smaller than me, because we all have our goals to achieve. And if we all work together, things happen. I still remember when I was a branch manager and I had to stand in front of a team and we were having a meeting. And one of the field employees, a blue-collar worker, raised a question. And I did not bother to answer him. I just got caught up in the discussions. And that person was very upset that I ignored him. And when I found out about this, I went and apologized to him. I told him, I'm so sorry about this. I did not mean to ignore you. And that guy was shocked. He said, you are the boss. You don't have to apologize to me, but you still did. And his respect for me went even one notch above. I started learning the importance of being agile. Today in 2020 and 2021, people talk about agility. But in 2008, I had no choice but to be agile because I was a young, inexperienced leader running a big organization in a multinational company in a foreign country as well. And one of the things, and one of the reasons I think I got that job as a branch manager is because in this photo, what you see is a guy standing with an award. It's a Business Excellence Award. And this was when I handed over my quality role to the gentleman having the award. We won the award for Best Company for Improving Quality. And that was my achievement as a quality manager. And all those people you see behind me eventually became my direct reports. They were my seniors when I joined the company, but they became my subordinates after I became the manager. The next is my move to Vietnam. A very interesting assignment that I got. You know, when the company offered me this assignment as the managing director, I was 31 years old. And I was the youngest managing director the company then had ever had by this role. But before this, I only have heard of Vietnam. I've never been to Vietnam, never had much to do with Vietnam. And I thought it was some developing country, very poor country, like what you see in newspapers about India and stuff. But when I went there, I was quite surprised to see the warmth, the love, the kind of energy, the team spirit the organization had. But I had a big challenge. The challenge was, it was a turnaround. Vietnam was not making a profit. Schindler Vietnam. We had people issues, culture issues, safety issues. And I wasn't even aware of these things before I went. I wasn't informed about it. But when I went there, the first day, the sales director made me aware that he wanted this job, but he wasn't given it, it was given to me, and that he will probably start looking out. He was one of the important persons in the company. Within another week, many of the top talents wanted to quit because of poor culture in the organization. So I had a very tough challenge in hand. I had to stop these exits, re-inspire the organization, get them to really get back to becoming a best performing organization. In 2012, we made a 3-year roadmap, and we said by 2015, we will become the best operations for Schindler worldwide. And one of the things I had to do was what I call as crazy recruiting. One of the senior talents of the organization was a young guy. He was a very talented young gentleman. At that time, he was 26 years old. He came to me and he said that he's got a very good offer from Procter & Gamble and he wanted to leave. He got a very good opportunity with Procter & Gamble. And I knew that he was very important for the organization and I had to retain him. And one of the reasons he said he was leaving was because the department head that he was working with was not inspiring people and was not giving them a future. So I took a very tough decision of promoting this young talent as the department head for the technical department and moving the other guy out to a different role. And finally, this guy became the management team member and department head at the age of 26 and went on to do an excellent job. And later on became the general manager, managing director for Schindler Cambodia. A very talented guy. Similarly, I found a young administrator who just joined as a secretary, but I found that she was very talented. I worked on her, directly got her under my mentorship, groomed her to become the HR director for Vietnam. Another very experienced person who was neglected in the organization, in the operations role. I crazily made him the sales director. And he went on to not only become the sales director, but right now he is the managing director for Schindler Vietnam. So one of the things I learned was the best performing people are not looking for jobs. They are well taken care of by their organizations, and you have to go and find them, proactively go and interact with them, and they will be available anywhere and everywhere. I have examples of recruiting people through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through my journeys in aeroplanes, networking events. This is how I feel people out there got to be found who can make a difference to your organization. And that's what I call as crazy recruiting. This is an example of my time in Vietnam when during the Vietnamese New Year, they dressed me up as the Vietnamese god and how they celebrated the New Year with them. Sorry, just a minute. The next was Malaysia. Malaysia was a very difficult assignment for me. Probably my toughest that I've had. And one of the challenges I had was, in Malaysia there are three main cultures: the Chinese, the Indians and the Malays. In fact, this picture represents what is a typical Malaysia. You can see Chinese, you can see Indians, and you can see Malay. And this was a diversity day that we had initiated. I was wearing a Malay costume. My Chinese secretary was wearing Indian costume. The challenge here was the Indians, Malays and Chinese were not getting along together. A great country, but the politicians had made sure that the three races never got along. And this was a challenge in organizations as well. So what I did was conduct such kind of cultural events to show them how this unity can bring amazing results. We made cross-functional teams to work on projects. We made cooking competitions where Chinese dish will be made in a Malay house, served by Indians. We looked at what are the aspects which is driving the culture issues and worked on them. And Malaysia also then became a huge success in my career. And I forgot to mention that Vietnam, we had made a plan for 2015 to be the best country, but in 2014, we got the award for the best country in Vietnam, 1 year before our plan. And everywhere I had to be agile. What I did in Australia did not work in Vietnam. And what I did in Vietnam doesn't work in Malaysia. Everywhere it was about understanding the local issues, cultural nuances, the problem in hand, and then deciding how we drive the organization. Finally, coming to India. In 2018, I came to India as a CEO, youngest CEO for Schindler. 2019, I received the Economic Times 40 under 40. And when I came to Schindler India, I found that India was in general a very financially driven organization and country. It was all about the bottom line. It was all about the targets and meeting your numbers. We were very successful. So it was not a turnaround. So my goal was, how do I make a successful company even more successful without just focusing only on the numbers, but changing the focus on people. The last 3 years, this is the journey that we went to drive the focus towards people. The common thing people used to tell me was, boss, ye yahan nahi chalega. This won't work in India. India is big, India is different. And one thing, my dear friends, I learned working in 4 different countries is people are the same everywhere. They have same aspirations, same goals, same desire to do well, to get promoted, to be rewarded. A lot of the Western people think that Indians should be told what to do and not asked what to do. But I'm sure all of you will agree that's not true. We all like to be asked. We all like to be respected. And that is what I try to bring into Schindler India, is to decentralize the organization. Empower the local teams. Give them the accountability and responsibility. And we started seeing the results changing. So in every single one of them, if I have to summarize, this is a photo from the Indian team before COVID, a year-end party that we had organized, the kind of culture that we want to create. So this is what, in summary, was the key learnings. My key learning of my success, first is networking. You got to go and interact with people who are not from your organization, who are not only from your level. The second one is don't wait for your organization to provide you all the training and all the necessary skills. You got to learn yourself. You can interact with people, read books, improve yourself every day. The third learning, recruiting differently. Respecting all cultures, fourth one. Fifth one, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So every company that you desire to work with, it's important to choose the right company with a great working culture. Choose the culture of the company and the type of boss. Don't choose a brand name and salary. That should not be your first goal. I learned that leaders can achieve results by being humble and being grateful, not showing off that they are the boss and driving people crazy. And finally, it was about leadership with love. You can still show love and lead people and attain amazing results. So this is a summary of my stints in 4 different countries and my key learnings. That's the end of the formal session. I welcome all of you to follow me on my social media platforms. If you're interested to learn more about leadership, management, skill development, I'm very active on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I post regular content for people who are interested to develop themselves. But thank you very much for the formal session. Now we would like to spend the rest of the time with question and answers. Thank you.
So much, Mr. Ramachandran. We have the questions which have started to pour in. So I'll just start off with those.
Sure.
Ruchira Lahiri asks that what if cross-cultural teams not work out due to differences in impact results in company? Then what should we do?
Can you repeat the question?
What if cross-cultural teams not work out due to differences and the impact results in company output? Then what should we do?
See, end of the day, the working of a team depends on the leader. So if you're the leader of this working group, then it's your responsibility to make sure that the team's cultural differences are resolved. Even today in India, every single member of my team is much older than me, but we have a great bond. We are like a bunch of friends running the company, and that's what is helping us to be number one in India as well. If there are cultural issues, you must take it up with your boss and you must work towards improving the work culture. You cannot choose your team always. If you have a problem in this company and you leave because you have a problem with team, you cannot guarantee the next team you will get the best team as well, right? That's what I would say as the answer.
Thank you. Ruchira has a follow-up question as well, that how do we work with a boss who is not the best of them all? So how should she manage that?
Okay. So, I've had experiences, right? Because I can never choose my boss as well. And I'll share one example. When I was in Australia, when I was a branch manager, they appointed a new boss for me, the company. And that person came from outside the company. The moment he came, he invited me for a meeting. I asked him, is there anything I have to prepare for the meeting? And he said, no. So I started looking forward for the meeting, first time with the new boss. When I went for the meeting, he started asking me very tough questions that I wasn't prepared. And I started sweating, right? I'm like, oh my God, I don't know these answers. And then by end of the meeting, I was literally in tears. And I asked him, you never told me to prepare. He said, you're supposed to be knowing all these things. Now, I had a choice of going and complaining about him to the super boss, who was very good, who was my mentor actually. He was very close to me. Or I had a choice to talk to my boss about his behavior in a genuine way, with a genuine body language. So when I thought about it, I decided to go with the choice 2, option 2, which was to go and talk to my boss myself. And after a few weeks, I raised my guts and I went and spoke to him. And I told him how his behavior towards me has impacted me and what will it impact the organization. I told him how he can get the best out of me and what was my past performance in the company. He was quite shocked. He didn't expect a young guy to come and tell him these things. But he was very appreciative that I spoke to him directly. And he knew that I had access to the managing director, but I didn't do that. And his opinion about me changed. So if you have a difficult boss, my first suggestion is to go and talk to the boss. Now, if you feel that boss will not listen to you, will not hear to you, you have to find somebody in the organization, senior level, who can help you out, a HR or somebody else. If you still don't know what to do, then you need to leave the job and find a different job. But I always request to start with having an open, honest conversation. Now, one thing, Meenakshi, in my experience, I have learned that bosses who are not good or bad, according to us, they don't wake up in the morning and say that I'm going to be a bad boss, right? God did not create them bad. It is their circumstances, their life experiences, their surroundings that has made them this way. Maybe they have been trained by bosses who are like them. So I think the first thing we should do is we should empathize with such kind of bosses. We should feel sorry for them and say, maybe they don't have the kind of experience and pedigree and knowledge that we have. And then you start discussing with them. You will see that changes will happen. Thank you.
Sure, that answer helped a lot of us. Sarika has a question that could you tell us a little bit about conflict management? I think this would be related to the previous question as well.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what I mentioned before. Conflict management is very common. In every organization, in every department, every team, it can happen. The most important thing with conflict management is transparency, openness, and not being political. Normally, what people do is if I have a problem with Meenakshi, I go to somebody else and say, hey, you know what, this Meenakshi is horrible. I try to tell her not to do this, but she's just going on and on. And what happens is the other person will come and tell Meenakshi, do you know what Ashok is talking about you? Then there's a conflict, right? So if I have a problem with Meenakshi, I come to Meenakshi and talk to her directly. So if you have a conflict, talk to people directly. Be honest, be genuine, be concerning. If I tell Meenakshi that, Meenakshi, I really care about you. I think you're a very smart girl. I really want to see you grow and develop. But this is a problem that I have with your behavior. Do you want to think about it? If I speak to you in this way, Meenakshi, don't you think you will think about it?
Okay.
Right? It's the way you speak to them. So it's very important to resolve conflicts, and bosses and leaders have a big role to play in this. Right? Thank you.
Central has a question that when did you exactly decide to study master's degree in Australia, and any particular reason for that?
The reason I went to Australia was I was not able to find a good job in India. I was not good as well, so I don't want to blame India for that. I wasn't very intelligent, I wasn't very smart, like I mentioned before. And I was trying to find a way to excel in my life. And it just so happened that I met somebody who was studying there, who happens to be a good friend of mine, and he mentioned about it. That's how I went to Australia.
Kishore has a question that what are the key activities that you performed that gave you your first big opportunity as GM in Australia?
So first thing is, I made sure that I was not just doing what was told to me as a job description. I went beyond the job description and I used to go to management team members in the company and ask them what are the challenges that they face. How can I help them with my knowledge of masters in industrial engineering? Is there any problems in their department that I could help with? So people were quite surprised to see somebody proactively coming and offering help. Some people didn't like it, but one of them liked it. He gave me an opportunity to work on a project. That project went extremely well, and that got me into limelight. I was also connecting with everyone in the company, right from the chai wala to the CEO. I will treat all of them the same. Give them equal importance. I made a lot of strong bonds and relationship with people. So that made the company feel that I'm a people's person and it's good to be a leader. I was very much persistent in my efforts to achieve the targets. I used to go always above the targets, even in my planning phase. The company said you have to do 10, I'll plan for 15. Even if I'm sending an email, I want to do it in a way that it's the best email anybody has received. So I was always wanting to do things better and different than anyone else. I wanted to stand out because of my past of not being good in studies, not being good in engineering. I had a lot of self-doubt. I wanted to prove to myself that I'm good. So all these things pushed me when I started working to do things better than anyone else, which inspires awe even for myself. And that is what I call as chasing obscene success. So that is how I think I got my big break.
So much for that. Anashri has a question that what role according to you is when empathy takes place in communication with the team? Probably when it starts.
I don't understand that question.
I think she wants to ask you, when should you start applying empathy while communicating with the team?
Always. It should not be a pretending thing, right? You should always have empathy when you communicate with your team.
Definitely. Ashish has a question that can we identify any culture issue in an organization beforehand? Are there any earlier signs to those?
Yes, you can. What you do is you go and look at their social media channels, look at the kind of communication they're putting out. But more than that, look at the comments of people in that company. Try and speak to people in that company. Get some inputs. Then you will start seeing a big change. You'll understand the culture. Then you can choose a company as well. That's what I would suggest.
Rajesh has a question that what if I have to create a performance-driven culture myself? How should I go about it?
The performance-driven culture comes from the fact that you're not just working to achieve your targets. Whatever task you're given, you work on maximizing the potential. For example, if you're in sales, you're asked to sell 50 of the product that you're selling. You have to look at what is the potential opportunity. Can you sell 200? Then go for 200. That is where a performance-based culture starts. And then you got to make sure that the reward system, the recognition system, the penalty system is all based on performance-driven culture. Right from recruitment, you should involve the performance-based culture as a baseline. And that's how you start driving a performance-based culture.
Thank you. Bhaskar has a question that how do we give up fear of not performing well, even though we are working profoundly with 100% input from our side?
Okay, so the most important thing is you can't control the result. You only control your efforts. I cannot control what score I will get in the exam, but I can control how much I study, how much I prepare. So what I always believe is, what is not in my control, I don't try to put my energy on that, because it's a waste of my energy. And if you start focusing more on the efforts, more on the process, then you will reduce your anxiety on the actual result. I look at every problem like an MBA case study. What is the problem? What are the resources I have? What are the challenges? What's the root cause? What's the action I can take? Simple in my mind. Don't internalize the problem. Don't consume the problem inside you. Keep it outside and look at the problem. You will get a very, very good idea of solving the problem. Try this method. Trust me, it works very, very well. That's what I would say.
Wonderful answer. Prashant has a question that as technology is changing rapidly, one has to be updated when working in a technological organization. What is important, a better technologist or a better people manager while progressing in career?
It really depends on your long-term ambitions. If you want to be a CEO, you probably want to be a better people manager. If you want to be an expert in certain fields, you probably should be a technologist. The future of the world post-pandemic is high-skilled people. Whether it's people management or technology, doesn't matter. But whatever work you're doing, you have to be very, very highly skilled. So I would say pick based on your long-term choices.
Thank you. Rajesh Ramachandran has a question that what are the challenges thrown at you when you were pushed to the deep end at a very early stage of your career, especially in Australia? How did you overcome those? And do you think, in hindsight, that the Schindler team that picked you are visionaries in the true sense?
I think I would definitely say that first, they were definitely visionaries, especially my mentor and my managing director at that time. He was definitely a visionary. That he could see I could be a successful CEO. Typical challenges that I always faced was people doubting me for my age and experience. Nobody used to take me seriously initially. So every time I had to prove myself that I can do it. And that is how I had to show them that I'm good. And whenever I got pushed to the corner, I always used to remember my bosses who gave me this role. And I kept thinking that if I fail, they fail. If I don't do well, this whole model of bringing young people, giving them big opportunities will fail. So that fear of failure kept me going. I used to read a lot, interact with a lot of people. I was very mature for my age even those days. That's what people used to always tell me. Even at 28, I used to behave like a 35, emotionally. I think that is what helped me a lot. And I've also, the EQ, what people talk about now, emotional quotient, is very important to be very, very good from an EQ perspective. That is what I would say.
Yeah. Sahil has a question that he studied computer engineering from a top institute and quickly realized that coding was not his forte. But now, since he has a computer engineering degree from a top institute, most recruiters and employers just assume that he will always be a coder. But now he wants to be either a consultant or a business analyst. What should he do to tackle this?
So either you join at a lower level in a different company on a business analyst role or the role that you want to pursue, or maybe do some other qualification like an MBA, which can help you change your track. But I would suggest to do a combination of both. Study and try and do some internships or side hustle in your field of interest for future.
Thank you. Sujit has a question that, as you said, good people don't look for jobs, which is correct. So how do you do crazy hiring? I mean, how do you connect with them Is it through Facebook or LinkedIn? What is the process followed?
I basically connect with people on all these platforms, right? Today, of course, it's virtual. It's not very easy. But when it wasn't virtual, so when I travel in an airplane, I communicate with the person next to me. I start engaging in a conversation. And many times you will bump into amazing people, very smart people. And if I figure out what they're doing and if that's what I'm kind of looking for, I try and get them into a interview with my team. And I also strongly believe that if you find the best people, you have to create a job for them in the organization. You can't always wait for the vacancy to open up. So I'm always hunting for talents. I'm always talking to people. Even when I do these college sessions, some people stand out. Some people ask very good questions. They would come on a video, they would show their passion, energy, and then you feel, okay, this person is different. For example, I do Instagram live on my Instagram channel every 2 weeks. And there are some people who come and chat with me on the live, and I'm totally impressed. In fact, it happened 2 weeks ago. One particular person, I was so impressed. I called and offered him a job. He was shocked. Because people don't do that. But I do all these things. That's why I call it crazy hiring.
It's wonderful. Pankaj has a question that how do I tackle unconscious biasness in our own minds?
By being aware of them, first of all. Mindfulness is the biggest opportunity we all have to be aware of biases. Like this month, in fact, is a Pride month, June. It's when you celebrate or recognize the community of lesbian, gays, bisexuals, trans and stuff. And Schindler, we embrace Pride month. And one of my colleagues was giving me an example that this guy is a middle-aged guy. 20 years ago, he actually eloped with a Brahmin girl, and he's a non-Brahmin, and got married. Now he has a daughter who's 20 years old. So one day, apparently his daughter, he had an interview with a guy, and the guy happens to be gay. And my colleague was very uncomfortable. So he even goes home, tells his daughter, I had this interview with the gay guy. I couldn't stand him. I had to just get rid of him in 10 minutes. Now his daughter got very upset. She said, Dad, you can't do this, This is not a good way of thinking. And she was giving him a long lecture. Now my friend started worrying if his daughter is a lesbian. And why is she supporting this guy? Now I told my friend, I said, 20 years ago, you going with a Brahmin girl was not common. Probably was very bad for the society and for the parents. Now today, 20 years later, you think that your daughter being a lesbian is very bad for your community. So don't you think you're being double standard? It just, he realized very quickly. And he now uses this example and shares it to his friends. How he was unaware and now how he's aware. So the biggest thing with biases, Meenakshi, is awareness. You have to be aware of the problems of the biases and then you can really change.
Definitely. The next question is from Kishan. Why did Schindler select you from quality manager to branch manager in Australia? What did they see in you to give you that particular opportunity?
Yeah, I think I answered this.
You've already answered this. Sorry. All right. How long should one take to try to understand the cross-cultural differences? And if there are different perspectives to solve a certain issue, how do we achieve a common ground? This question is by Sneha.
So 2 questions, right? One is how long does it take?
To try to understand the cross-cultural differences, and if there are different perspectives to solve a certain issue, how do we achieve a common ground?
I mean, there is no time frame, and I will not be able to say in the end of 90 days you will understand. I think the biggest trick is regular conversations, communications, and engagement with people, and really talking to people by actively listening, not trying to reply. When we all speak to each other, I am only worried about replying to Meenakshi. I'm not listening to Meenakshi. So if we actively listen, you will start understanding the differences. And if you have difference of opinion, it's more about being open and honest and transparent, and don't take everything personal. If I have a problem, a lot of times we call and complain about any product, right? Like if you have a problem with, let's say, Amazon, you call somebody, they answer, and you scold them. You're not actually scolding them, you're scolding the company. But many times they feel scolded, like as if they are personally responsible. So don't try and take things personal. Just be open-minded.
Lekhat asks that what an inspiring journey that you've had. What are the little things that mattered most to you so that you are what you are today?
I would say my obsession about people. I will use the word obsession. It's very, very easy when you become a leader to get blinded by power, position, money. At 31, you're a managing director, Vietnam. 38, you're the CEO, president of Schindler, India. You drive a fancy car, you have a good lifestyle, and you can easily tend to forget where you came from. Whenever I get a chance, I go back to Chennai, where I was born. I was born in a one-room house, and we had common toilets. I go with my mom, all the time there, just to make sure that I don't forget where I came from. These are very little things for me, but very important for me. Even today, I'm sure all of you are in various WhatsApp groups. Meenakshi, you have seen in your WhatsApp group, there is somebody's birthday, there is a birthday wish. And then what you see is a barrage of wishes below, right? It even goes down to, first it starts with happy birthday, Meenakshi. Then it becomes HBD, Meenakshi, right? Now, I have a habit of never wishing people in a group. If I know that it is Meenakshi's birthday, I will send you a private message and just wish you happy birthday. I hope you have a fantastic year ahead. When you receive a message in a private message and in a group message, how do you feel?
Private would actually touch me more.
Exactly. This is a very small thing. If you remember, I'm a 80s kid, in the 1990s and 2000s, people used to send e-greeting cards. And it's a common greeting card, for everybody, for Diwali and all that. I used to not even enjoy them, because I'm just one among the crowd. Like New Year Eve, you get thousands of New Year wishes, common New Year wishes. I wouldn't do that. I would make it a very personal thing. These are small things I can share.
Thank you. So we just have about 4 minutes left, so probably I'll take one or two more questions.
Yeah.
Amit has a question that how can a junior person understand a company's vision and goals if it's not being pronounced in the company itself? How does he know that he has a future in this company or not?
Communication. So you got to talk to the HR, your reporting manager, or if there's a senior member in the company that you can have access to, you should go and ask them these questions. Or even during interviews, you should ask them the questions. So what is the vision of the company? What is the career future if I join your company? Instead of asking what's my salary, what are the benefits, this is what I will be asking.
All right, thank you. For the last question, I have been getting this one from many participants, so I'll just pose this as the last question. Can you share more details about the 100 days roadmap that you chalked out for yourself, and how do you go about that?
I can. In fact, I will see if I can just share what I did as well. Just give me a minute. I'll just show you a glimpse. In fact, it's been used very commonly now in Schindler, my first 100-day plan, which I made many years ago. Yeah, I found it. Let me just share with you guys. Can you see?
Yes, we can.
So this was in 2008, 9. First 100-day agenda for new leadership role, Queensland. The letter announcing my promotion to the next job should state the following about me. Ash, I used to be called Ash in Australia, has proved to be a worthy regional manager because built a resilient team, financial results, ensured a spectacular safety record, was an inspiring leader, leaves a worthy successor. I started with the end in mind. And then I went to outline what does the document have? What is my overall objective? So the first 100 days, first 30 days is establishing credibility and building personal relationship. And I set up a table, what will I do? How will I do it? What is the metric and what is the target? The goal was, how do I establish credibility and build personal relationship? That is the phase 1. Phase 2, how to deal with fundamental issues and harvest quick wins. I have detailed, again, similar action plan on a table. And then finally, last 10 days, how do I get everything together? I wrote down key milestones. Just a minute. What are the key information I need? Like, how is the branch performance? How did the branch reach this point? Managing boss. How do I manage my boss? What are the key behaviors that I want to display? Demanding but be satisfied. Decisive, judicious. Focused but flexible. How do I assess my team performance? I made a table. So you can see, it was a very, very detailed exercise. And I made it because I was very scared of failing. I was 27 years old, never managed a business, and I was suddenly made a branch manager. I just made it out of my own fear of failure. So if anybody is interested to get a copy of this, I have no problem to share it. As I said, you can reach out on my social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever is comfortable. More than happy to share it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramachandran. This has been a truly inspiring session, and your story has actually given us a lot of food for thought as well as to how to better ourselves, I think. And on behalf of all the learners here, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know you have had a really busy schedule as well. You did mention some meetings. So thank you so much all the learners as well for attending the session and for all your questions. We still have a few pending, but you have actually answered a lot for us.
No problem. I would request those who I missed out answering, do feel free to direct message me on my social media, and I'll be more than happy to help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, everyone. Keep chasing obscene success and stay fit, stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you everyone who send us your feedback on the survey, please. And I'll ask him for the document and send it over to all of you through Canvas.